She laughed. That high-pitched, smug little laugh I knew like the back of my hand. I stood there on the porch, soaked from the rain, bottle of Bighorn whiskey in my hand, and just froze. 12-hour flight, 3 delays, and a 2-hour drive through the mountains, just to surprise my wife at her girls' weekend getaway. And then I heard her voice through the door. If Eric disappeared, the insurance would wipe my debt, another woman chimed in. Or you could finally sleep with his brother without guilt. They all burst out laughing. My name's Eric. I'm 34 years old. I live, or lived, in Fort Collins, Colorado. I run a construction crew. Work boots, dirt under the nails, long days, hard nights. I built our life from scratch. I thought she appreciated that. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. I didn't move. I couldn't. My hand was stuck gripping the neck of that bottle like it had answers. Their voices inside were still laughing, cackling like it was a roast. I looked down at the bottle, Bighorn, her favorite. I'd tracked it down from some little shop 2 counties over. She always said it reminded her of her granddad's cabin in Idaho. I thought maybe it'd bring a smile to her face. Maybe remind her why we fell in love in the first place. Guess I was the only one still thinking like that. I'd worked overtime for 6 straight months, skipped weekends, skipped sleep, put off repairs on my truck just to funnel every extra dime into her cafe when it was bleeding money. I believed in her dreams more than she did, and she was in there joking about insurance money and screwing my brother. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt like someone parked a truck on it. All I could think was, she didn't just fall out of love, she cashed out. By morning, I was back at the Denver airport with nothing but my passport, a backpack, and a burner phone I bought from a gas station in Idaho Springs. I booked a one-way to Panama, didn't even check the time, just clicked buy and turned my old phone off for good. Let her figure out what happened to Eric. The plane hit turbulence somewhere over Houston, and my stomach rolled. I stared out the window, watching clouds smear across the glass, trying to figure out where the hell my life had gone sideways. Married 2 years. Met Marissa at some charity gala a mutual friend dragged me to. She'd been this polished, smiling woman in a red dress, holding a champagne flute like she was born knowing how. I'd shown up in a suit that didn't fit right and boots that probably smelled like drywall dust. Somehow, she thought that was charming. I like that you work with your hands, she'd said that night, fingers tracing the calluses on mine. My dad's friends just talk about stocks and golf. Her dad was the kind of guy who handed you his business card like it came with a job. He didn't like me much. First time we met, he said, I assume you'll sign a prenup? I looked at Marissa, but she laughed it off. Dad, please. Love doesn't need contracts. I believed her. God help me, I actually believed her. We got married in a vineyard outside Boulder. Nothing fancy, at least by her family's standards, but it cost more than I made in a month. I didn't care. She said she wanted small, intimate, simple. I thought that meant we were starting equal. A few months later, she opened her cafe, Marissa's Table. She said it'd be a place for locals, for community, for real people. I built the counters myself, stayed up past midnight sanding the oak until it was smooth enough to catch reflections. Then the bills started piling up. Suppliers, rent, licenses. I found her crying one night over the kitchen table, paperwork everywhere. I'm a failure, she whispered. I don't know what I'm doing. So I did what any husband would. I emptied my savings, paid off the loan, and told her we'd figure it out together. When I handed her that cashier's check, she kissed me like I'd saved her life. I thought that meant something. A few months after that, she brought up the insurance policy, said it was just a smart adult move. We were in bed, half asleep. She told me it was for peace of mind, that it'd help if something ever happened, so our future kids would be safe. I remember laughing. Marissa, we don't even have kids yet. Exactly, she said. It's called planning ahead. At the time, it didn't sound like a setup, just another box checked on the adulting list. But things started to change after that. She stopped inviting me to her family dinners, said it was too stressful dealing with her dad's questions about money. She started dressing up for girls' nights that seemed to happen every weekend. I'd come home from the job site, covered in sawdust, and the house would be dark. Her perfume would still hang in the hallway. When she was home, she'd scroll on her phone non-stop, laughing at something she never explained. Once, I caught a glimpse of a text. Nathan's name on the screen. My brother. They'd always been friendly. He was smoother than me. Good with words, good with people. I figured they just got along. Didn't know you and Nate talked this much, I said once, trying to sound casual. She smiled. He checks in sometimes. You know how brothers are. Yeah, I did. Looking back, all the signs were there. Little cracks I kept patching over. I told myself it was stress. The cafe, her dad, life. But the night at that cabin blew it all open. On the flight, I kept my baseball cap low, and my thoughts even lower. I wasn't scared. I was hollow. Everything that used to define me, husband, foreman, brother, was gone. Just ashes. Midway through the flight, I remembered an old army buddy, Curtis. Tough bastard. Lived somewhere off-grid in Central America. We'd talked once about how he'd disappeared the right way. I dug his number out of an old email account and sent a single message from the burner. Need a place to vanish. He called an hour later. Jesus, man, you in trouble? Just done, I said. He grunted. Puerto Azul, little fishing town on the coast. Find a guy named Raul at the bus stop. Tell him Curtis sent you. He'll point you to a place to stay. That was all I needed. When the plane landed in Panama City, the humidity hit me like a wet blanket. I walked off that jet bridge feeling like I'd stepped onto another planet. Different smells, voices, heat, everything. I found a shuttle heading west, sat in the back, and stared out the window as the city thinned into jungle and ocean. The trip took most of the day. One shuttle, one bus, one truck with no air conditioning. By the time we pulled into Puerto Azul, the sun was sinking low, painting the water orange. The town was tiny. A few boats, some cracked stucco houses, and a handful of locals who barely looked up when I passed. Raul was exactly where Curtis said he'd be, sitting on a milk crate by the bus stop, smoking. When I mentioned Curtis, he nodded once, no questions, and led me through a narrow dirt path to a small guest house facing the beach. The owner, a woman named Celia, was short, sharp-eyed, and spoke enough English to ask, "Tourist?" I hesitated. "Writer," I said. "Just need quiet." She nodded like she'd heard it all before and handed me a rusted key. The room smelled like salt and old wood. I dumped my bag on the bed, stepped out onto the balcony, and just listened. The waves, the distant chatter, the sound of life happening without me. I sat on that beach for hours with the sand between my fingers, trying to figure out how I'd become this guy. A man who worked his whole life to build something real, only to vanish overnight. Maybe I'd been running on autopilot too long. Maybe I'd been too blind, too trusting, too eager to fix what she was busy breaking. Either way, it didn't matter now. The old life was gone. As the tide crept up around my feet, I made myself a promise. I wasn't going to keep running. Not from her, not from what happened, not from who I was. I'd start thinking, start building again, and maybe, just maybe, start over. The next morning, I walked to town and asked Celia if anyone needed help fixing things. She pointed me to a guy named Mateo, who owned a few beach rentals near the edge of the village. No paperwork, no questions. He gave me a hammer and a busted screen door and told me to get to work. The pay was next to nothing, but it didn't matter. It was honest. No lies, no pretending. Just sun, sweat, and tools in my hand. After a week, I chopped off my hair with a pair of dull scissors, grew out my beard, and swapped the jeans and boots for cargo shorts and old t-shirts. Nobody gave me a second look anymore, and that was exactly what I wanted. Mornings started early. I'd hit the beach before sunrise, swim until my arms burned, then grab a sweet coffee from the corner shack. A little kid named Diego, maybe 10 years old, started teaching me Spanish after school. We'd sit on the porch with a notepad and trade words back and forth. Madeira for wood, mar for sea. He'd laugh when I got it wrong, which was often. Something about the rhythm of that place reset my brain. I didn't have to explain myself. Didn't have to be anyone's husband, anyone's brother, anyone's damn mule. I was just a guy with calloused hands and a half-decent work ethic. One afternoon, while organizing scrap wood behind Mateo's rental, I found a stack of old plywood panels and brought them back to my casita. That night, I grabbed a pencil and started sketching. I hadn't drawn since high school. Used to do it to clear my head after long shifts at the lumber yard. Turns out, I still had it. My lines were shaky at first, but they got cleaner each day. I started sketching the coastline, the boats, faces of people I'd met. Something about putting it on paper made everything feel more solid, like I existed again. Then, one night after dinner, the burner phone buzzed. One missed call, Nathan's number. My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen like it might explode. He hadn't called once since I left, not even a text. I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, it dinged. I played the message with my thumb hovering over delete. "Eric, call me back, man. It's important. She's in trouble." That was it. No detail, no apology, just vague urgency and that voice I used to trust. I deleted the message. My heart pounded for a long time after. I stood outside barefoot, breathing in the salt air, fists clenched at my sides like I was ready to fight the wind. Trouble? Trouble was when you drain someone's savings in a joke about their death. Trouble was screwing your brother's wife while smiling across the dinner table. Whatever mess they were in, it wasn't mine to clean up. But the next morning, I couldn't shake it. While hammering in a loose board, I kept hearing Nathan's voice on repeat. She's in trouble. What did that even mean? Money trouble? Legal trouble? Something worse? I didn't want to care. I wanted to keep sanding wood and watching sunsets and sketching Diego's dumb grin. But a part of me needed to know. Not because I missed them. Not because I gave a damn about saving anyone. I needed the truth, the full picture, the final nail in the coffin. Because as long as there were questions, they still had a hold on me. And I wasn't free yet. By the third morning, I couldn't stand not knowing. The questions were eating holes in my head. So I walked down the dirt road to the only cafe with Wi-Fi, ordered a black coffee, and pulled out the burner. I scrolled to the one name I trusted, Curtis. We'd served together overseas. Back then, if something went sideways, he was the guy who found the truth, before Command even knew there was a problem. Last I heard, he ran a small private security outfit in Chicago, mostly background checks and corporate fraud. When he answered, his voice was gravel. "Eric, holy hell, man. You're supposed to be dead or married. Which is it?" "Neither," I said. "I need a favor. Big one." He grunted. "Shoot. I need eyes on Marissa and Nathan, my wife and my brother. Something's off, and I want to know what the hell it is." There was a pause, then a low whistle. "That kind of job costs, buddy. I'll pay, whatever it takes." He sighed. "Send me full names, last known address, any numbers you've got. Give me 3 days." I typed everything out. Marissa Calloway Brooks, our old address in Fort Collins, Nathan Brooks, his cell number, hit send. Then I sat there in that humid cafe with sweat running down my neck, staring at the spinning Wi-Fi icon like it might tell me who I used to be. 3 days later, an email popped up from an encrypted link labeled Package C. James. Inside was everything I needed to know, and a whole lot I didn't want to. The first file showed a bank transfer. Marissa had drained our joint savings 48 hours after I vanished. Every last dollar, gone, moved into an account under her name only. The second file stopped my breath. A new life insurance policy, one I'd never heard of. Double my original, worth $3 million. The signature at the bottom was mine, or supposed to be. It wasn't. The loops were wrong, too clean, forged. There were credit reports too. Her business debt wasn't business at all. It was casino markers from Vegas and crypto losses so deep it looked like a sinkhole. Then came the screenshots. Text threads between her and Nathan. Hundreds of messages. Some sweet, some disgusting. Some that made me want to punch through the table. But one line burned into my skull forever. "Nathan? So when's he having his accident?" Her reply, "Patience? Timing is everything." I scrolled until my eyes blurred, heart thudding like a hammer. There was even a voice memo. Her laughing about how Eric will never see it coming. My hands shook, not from fear, rage. Straight, raw, clean rage. I closed the laptop and walked straight out of the cafe, down to the beach. The sky was burning orange over the water. I dropped into the sand, opened a cheap bottle of rum I'd bought earlier, and just stared at the waves. All that time I'd been breaking my back for her, working double shifts, fixing her cafe, believing her tears. She'd been calculating my expiration date. And Nathan, my own brother, the guy who helped me move furniture when we bought the house, who toasted me at the wedding, who used to call me Big Bro when we were kids. He wasn't just screwing around, he was plotting a payout. I could have screamed. I could have smashed the laptop. But instead, I laughed. A bitter, empty sound that scared a few birds off the shore. Because right then, I realized something. They thought they'd broken me. They thought I was weak. Some paycheck with a pulse, like she joked. But I was still standing, breathing, watching the tide roll in while they were back home, drowning in lies. For the first time since the cabin, the fog in my head lifted. The betrayal didn't own me anymore. I wasn't running. I was watching. I leaned back on my elbows, the sand warm under me, and whispered to the ocean, "You two have no idea what you just started." I didn't scream, didn't make some dramatic phone call or send a warning shot. I just opened my laptop, messaged Curtis, and said, "I'm ready. He put me in touch with a lawyer he trusted, a guy named Devlin who specialized in high-net ghosting. Not cheap, but precise. We set up a call over encrypted chat. I kept it simple. I want a firewall between me and anything she can touch, and I want it yesterday. Devlin didn't ask why, just nodded. Power of attorney, proxy management, asset sheltering. You want it locked down or burned down? Locked, I said, but flamethrower optional. We started with the accounts. Whatever was left in my personal savings, barely $5,000, I moved into a trust under a new legal name. Devlin created a shell company in Wyoming to hold it. Untraceable unless you knew where to dig. Then we froze the joint accounts. They were nearly empty, but I wanted her to feel it, log in, and see the walls closing in. Next, we packaged up everything Curtis found. The forged signature, the second policy, the affair texts, the gambling debt. We sent certified copies to the insurance company's fraud division with a short note. Claim alert, identity forgery, high-risk subject. They didn't need more. Insurance fraud lights up their systems like a Christmas tree. After that, I called in one last favor. My old accountant from back when I did freelance site jobs. He had a friend at the IRS. I didn't give full names, just enough to get attention. Offshore transfers, shell businesses, missing crypto records. I said, might want to check for unpaid taxes and fake filings. High-risk couple in Colorado. One owns a cafe, the other used to sell real estate. I heard the tone in his voice shift. I'll pass it on. Good. Let them swim in paperwork. With Curtis's help, I filed the divorce paperwork through an international courier. All signed, sealed, notarized. I used a private mailbox in Panama City for any return docs. It felt like closing a door I should have slammed months ago. Then I sent Nathan a message. One line, no greeting, no goodbye. Hope she's worth it. Check your credit score. No reply. But 3 days later, Curtis messaged me a screenshot. Nathan's downtown condo was flagged under lien. Turns out he'd co-signed one of Marissa's expansion loans back when they thought I was too stupid to notice. And now, the bank was coming for it. I sat on the porch of my casita, sipping dark coffee with rum stirred in, and watched a line of pelicans dive into the ocean like they had no idea the world could be cruel. Curtis called that afternoon, chuckling. Your brother's sweating, man. He's making calls, asking if you're alive. I didn't answer right away, just looked out at the sea. Let him sweat, I said. Because this wasn't about revenge, not really. It wasn't even about justice. It was about power. For 2 years, I was the guy who paid the bills, showed up on time, fixed broken plumbing, and got laughed at behind his back. Now, I was the guy they couldn't find, couldn't predict, couldn't control. I didn't need to see their faces. I didn't need some big confrontation or screaming match. I didn't need tears or apologies. I just needed the shift, that snap in the air when the roles reversed. Let Marissa feel the walls closing in. Let Nathan wake up to calls from banks and letters from lawyers. Let them both wonder how the guy they underestimated disappeared without a trace, only to pull every string they never saw coming. I was done playing nice, and for once, I wasn't chasing peace. I was dragging it into place with my own 2 hands. About a week after the lien hit Nathan's condo, Curtis called. His voice had that tight edge it only got when something interesting walked through the door. You're gonna want to hear this, he said. Go ahead. Your brother showed up at my office. I paused mid-sip, rum halfway to my lips. He what? Yeah. Said he was looking for you. Said he just wanted to talk to his brother. No drama. My assistant almost kicked him out. I had him wait in the conference room. I recorded it. Figured you'd want to hear for yourself. Curtis forwarded the file. I played it right there on the porch, watching the tide creep in. Nathan's voice came through scratchy but clear. Look, man, I didn't know she forged that stuff, all right? I thought she was just unhappy. I didn't think she'd actually... He stopped, breathing heavy. I didn't know it was that deep. There was a pause. Then, Marissa's spiraling. Creditors are calling. Her cafe's wrecked. Her reputation's trashed. She's been crying, breaking stuff. I didn't sign up for all this. He sniffed, like he was trying to pull himself together. Just give me his number, please. I just want to make things right. I hit pause. Sat there listening to the waves, my thumb hovering over the delete button. Curtis texted, want me to pass him your contact? I typed back, no, let him stew in it. Nathan didn't deserve closure, not after everything. Not after looking me in the eye all those years, pretending we were still brothers while he was screwing my wife and dreaming up ways for me to accidentally disappear. The next few days were quiet. Then Curtis called again. Update, Nathan's out of a job. Word got around. His company didn't want the mess. Good, I said, no hesitation. Also, Curtis added, Marissa fled. Vegas, most likely. Probably trying to sell off what she can, dodge whatever debt she can't. I let that sit. Let the silence speak. I walked back into the casita, poured myself a glass of local rum. No ice, no mixer. Just the good stuff, thick and sharp. Took it out to the porch, sat down, and watched the sun smear across the sky like someone had lit the world on fire. And I felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, not sadness, just clarity. The kind you only get after the dust settles and the noise dies down. After the phone stops ringing and the lies have all collapsed under their own weight. They were sinking, and I didn't even have to lift a hand. For once, I wasn't the one breaking my back to fix somebody else's chaos. I wasn't the fixer, the fallback, the idiot carrying the weight, while everyone else smiled for the camera. I was just a man with a drink, a new life, and no more ties to the past. Let Nathan cry. Let Marissa burn what's left. Me? I was exactly where I needed to be. 3 months after I vanished, I flew back into the States under a different name, wearing a suit I borrowed from a friend in Panama City. My lawyer filed under my legal identity, still Eric Brooks, but I used the alias for travel. It was a little loose in the shoulders, but it did the job. I looked nothing like the man who left. Court was in downtown Fort Collins. Cold morning, gray sky. I parked a rental across the street and walked in like I didn't know a single soul in the building. Marissa was already inside. I saw her through the glass of the hallway, sitting with her hands clenched in her lap, pale as hell, her eyes darting to the door every time someone walked in. Hair tied back, no makeup. Wearing a blazer 2 sizes too big, like she was trying to shrink. She looked like a ghost trying to borrow a body. I didn't say a word to her, just nodded to my lawyer and sat down. Inside the courtroom, it was all business. My guy stood up, laid everything out like he was reading off a grocery list. Your Honor, we're presenting documentation of financial fraud, including identity forgery on a life insurance policy, diversion of joint funds, and records of extramarital conduct between the respondent and petitioner's sibling. He placed the thick file on the bench. The judge barely looked up. Marissa didn't argue, didn't blink, just sat there, chewing on her thumbnail like a teenager waiting for detention to end. My lawyer continued, calm as ever. Given the uncontested nature of the evidence, we request immediate dissolution of the marriage and a financial bar, preventing the respondent from accessing any past or future earnings derived from the petitioner. The judge nodded. Granted, just like that, done. It didn't feel like a victory. It felt like signing the final line on a foreclosure, something that used to be yours, now dead and buried. We walked out into the hallway. I was about to keep moving when I heard it, her voice. Eric, wait. I stopped, slowly turned around. She stepped forward like she was still allowed to. We need to talk. I looked her dead in the eyes. You already said enough at the cabin. She flinched, couldn't even hold eye contact. I turned back around and walked through the glass doors, down the courthouse steps, and straight to my rental. Didn't look back, didn't check to see if she followed. Back in Panama, I moved into a small casita on the outskirts of Puerto Azul. Nothing fancy. Tin roof, chipped blue walls, ocean breeze that blew through the windows like clockwork. It was the kind of place where time slowed down, and no one asked questions. I built furniture by day. Locals needed chairs, tables, cabinets. I didn't care what it was, as long as it involved my hands and left my shirt soaked with sweat by noon. I'd sand the wood smooth, polish it till it shined. For the first time in years, I wasn't fixing someone else's mess. I was building something that lasted. At night, I painted, mostly sunsets, sometimes boats, sometimes faces. I had no training, no plan, just whatever came out when the day ended and the sky caught fire. One afternoon, a tourist couple wandered past my porch and saw a canvas leaning against the wall. The woman asked if it was for sale. I said, sure. She handed me $80 in crisp 20s. That painting took me 2 hours. I'd never felt richer. People around town started calling me El Americano Tranquilo, the quiet American. I liked it. No drama, no baggage. Just a guy who worked, kept to himself, and didn't ask for much. Eventually, the school asked if I'd teach woodworking once a week. Just a few kids, scrap wood, and dull tools. I said yes. Watching them build something with their own hands lit something up in me I thought was long gone. Sometimes late at night, I'd catch myself staring at the ceiling, wondering what might have happened if I hadn't heard Marissa's voice through that cabin door. Would I still be her walking paycheck, still fixing her broken cafe while Nathan played house behind my back? But then I'd hear the waves, or the sound of Diego and the other kids laughing in the courtyard. And I'd remember, revenge didn't have to be loud, it didn't have to be fire and fury. Sometimes it looked like this: waking up with no one lying to you, watching the tide roll in with nothing on your shoulders, eating simple food, doing honest work. Marissa and Nathan had each other now, two selfish people trapped in their own rotting web.